I wanted to start this review with something cliche, like be careful what you wish for. But what I really want to say is Hi everybody, Anthony here from Awesome Anthony Productions, and today I'm going to give you my review of the theatrical debut of YouTuber Curry Barker, Obsession. Obsession tells the story of Baron, aka Bear, Bailey, played by Michael Johnston, a lonely 20-something guy working at a music store with his high school friends Ian, played by Cooper Tomlinson, Sarah, played by Megan Lawless, and last but not least, his crush for years, Nikki Freeman, played by Indy Navarrete. Unable to tell Nikki how he really feels, Bear buys a novelty gift called a One-Wish Willow, and uses it to wish that Nikki loved him more than anything in the world.
I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the entire world.
And to his surprise, it works. So they start dating, and Bear finally has everything he's ever wanted. But it's not long at all before Nikki's love turns into a deep-rooted obsession, and Bear realizes that sometimes, to get what you desire, you're gonna have to pay a pretty steep price. You know what I loved about this movie? Honestly? Everything. Now, I never saw Barker's debut feature on YouTube, Milk and Cereal, but I have seen his short films The Chair, Warnings, and Enigma, and even back then I could tell that this dude was someone to watch out for, purely based on his vision and cinematography. And with this film, before I even get into the story or the characters, I was sold just on how great this looks. Obsession was shot in a 3:2 aspect ratio, giving it a taller, boxier frame than more modern movies that go for widescreen, and that choice goes such a long way pulling you into this film's tone. There's an unsettling intimacy to it that most studio movies don't really go for, and when you combine that with crisp camera work, the muted beige color palette that slowly shifts towards colder and bluer as the movie becomes more horrific, and Barker's expert use of lighting and shadows, this thing grabs you immediately and doesn't let go. What's interesting though is that for a while, it doesn't really feel that horrific. Honestly, early on, it's kind of fun. And that's something I really loved about the director's approach here. He doesn't show his hand too early. Instead, he lulls you into this false sense of security. For the first half, I was sitting there thinking, this is great. I love that this is more of a psychological, modern take on a Tales from the Crypt style cautionary tale, with some creepy imagery sprinkled in. But around the halfway point, and especially when we head into the third act, the other shoe drops, and you realize what this movie really is. Disturbing, mean-spirited, and genuinely horrifying. Like, this is probably the most upset and uncomfortable I've been watching a horror movie since Hereditary or the two Smile movies. Now, onto the performance. This entire small cast is fantastic. Even though he's not in the movie a ton, Cooper Tomlinson perfectly embodies that abrasive bro energy of the 20-something guy who's kind of a shitty friend. And Megan Lawless is great as the friend who clearly has feelings for Bear and is immediately suspicious when him and Nikki start dating.
It's weird how you two are dating all of a sudden.
But this movie would be nothing without the strength of the lead couple. And let me just say, these two relative newcomers, Michael Johnston and Indy Navarrete, bring their absolute A game. As Bear, Johnston has a surprisingly layered role to work through. And between Barker's direction, the writing, and the natural way Johnston approaches his character, I was invested in him immediately, even if after a while my sympathy for him started to disappear. Bear is quiet, anxious, and deeply insecure. And from the opening scene of him practicing his I like you speech for Nikki, he sells that vulnerability perfectly.
Nikki, wait. I was gonna ask you,
What?
I lost my train of thought.
I...
Good night. What else? Why?
There's this restrained, almost painful awkwardness to him. Like, you can physically feel how uncomfortable this dude is in his own skin. And as the movie goes on and Bear keeps doubling down on the wish, despite realizing that something is deeply wrong with Nikki, he slowly becomes more selfish, manipulative, and kind of passively villainous. Johnston handles that progression perfectly, constantly looking sweaty, ashamed, and terrified, while still refusing to let go of what he wanted so badly. And I thought it was incredibly smart for Barker to consciously shift Bear from protagonist to antagonist, instead of just falling into the crazy girlfriend cliche. Now, to talk about Nikki herself. Wow. Keep an eye on Indy Navarrete, guys. Seriously. She is going places and she deserves all the awards. As Nikki before the wish, she starts out playful, confident, flirty, just overall pretty likable. And you understand why Bear's had a crush on her for years. But the literal moment that Bear snaps that One-Wish Willow, she transforms into something deeply unsettling. And yeah, there are flashes of Mia Goth's performance in Pearl here.
Please, I'm a star!
Navarrette's been very clear about how much of an inspiration that was to her, but she still makes this role fully her own. She runs the full spectrum throughout this movie. At first, there's vulnerability, affection, puppy love, and genuinely fun chemistry with Bear, even while you can tell that something is very, very wrong below the surface with her. But as Bear starts getting more and more freaked out and tries to put some space in between them, Nikki becomes increasingly possessive, unnatural, and outright sadistic, and Navarrete grabs onto this role with her teeth and doesn't let go, especially by the time we get to the bleak as hell ending. And when you combine her performance with Barker's use of shadow and lighting, she becomes absolutely terrifying. Legitimately one of the best horror performances I've seen in a long time, probably since Naomi Scott in Smile 2. What I also appreciate here is that so much of the horror comes from Navarrette's performance. Outside of a few violent moments and one fantastic jump scare that really got me, most of the terror here comes from her presence alone.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you!
And man, that performance sat with me. The score helps a lot too. Unlike a lot of modern horror movies that feel like they can't have one scare go without blasting a soundtrack through the speakers, the score here is very understated, only creeping in at the right moments to accentuate tension or make something feel off. And despite how dark this movie gets, there's a surprising amount of humor here that actually works. A horror movie that disturbs you, keeps you up at night, makes you squirm, and makes you laugh? Yeah, that's the whole package right there. I'll just say it too. This movie messed me up. If I run out of the theater and immediately call my wife after, that means that a horror movie hit me hard. And between the performances, the technical aspect of the filmmaking, the insane final act, and that super dark ending, yeah, I called her the second I was in the car. Overall, this is nothing short of a modern horror masterpiece and easily the best horror movie I've seen so far this year. A slow burn that descends into a total nightmare. It's original, mean, well written, impeccably directed, beautifully shot and edited, and features a great lead performance from Michael Johnson alongside an absolutely jaw-dropping breakout performance from Indy Navarrete. It's another incredible horror debut from a YouTuber, and that's my review of Possession. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, leave a like, comment, let me know if you saw this movie and what you thought. Said the wrong movie when I originally shot the review. I will see you next time for my review of Exit 8.